All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and the Washington Commanders have picked center Ricky Stromberg in the 3rd round. I'm gonna, of course, do a Quan Martin pick because out of everybody, I'm probably the biggest fan of Quan Martin. As y'all know, I already mocked him to us in my mock draft that I put out a couple of days ago. I've been on the Quan Martin train for a while now, so that's on the way. But the Ricky Stromberg pick was most recently, so I've been looking at his tape. I've been looking for statistics and things like that. Y'all know how Rico at Street Scores do. We're not just going to talk. We're going to bring up statistics. We're going to talk about things I've seen on film, make comparisons. We got to talk about what this means for the rest of the team. Where does he fit? Will we potentially cut Chase Roullier because of this? He's the most athletic center in the draft, and I'm going to prove it to you. Also, the fact that he allowed 0 sacks in the SEC is insane. But the Washington Commanders have picked center Ricky Stromberg in the 3rd round, 97th overall. And, of course, we got to talk about everything revolving around him. Again, I'm gonna get the Quan Martin. I'm gonna come out with that one afterwards, but I just recently finished diving into some more Ricky Stromberg film. I watched a little bit of his film before the draft. I have to admit I didn't watch a lot, enough to really develop an opinion over the pick. But now, after watching the tape, looking at his athletic profile, and looking at his statistics, I feel like this is a very solid pick. You can argue everybody we've taken in this draft so far that you can maybe trade back and get that exact same guy, but the Commanders do not play. If they love somebody, they're taking them without question. Let's get to it, man. Commanders are not waiting around. Rivera and Martin Mayhew, if they have their eyes on you, they're not chancing getting you later on. They're just not. And I'm sick that we didn't get Darnell Washington, traded up to get him or something like that in the 3rd round, but it is what it is, man. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you pull up to the Commanders live streams throughout the entire draft process. Already streamed the 1st round. I streamed rounds 2 and 3 just tonight, and I'm streaming rounds 4 and 5 tomorrow, so make sure you pull up for those. I'm gonna start streaming at 11:30 a.m. The draft starts at 12 p.m. We got to see what we're gonna draft in the 4th and 5th round at the very least, and if things are really interesting, we'll continue to go through the 6th and 7th. It just depends on the situation, but I'll probably go ahead and start working on some film sessions that will be exclusive to channel members only. So man, make sure you stay tuned for all of the Commanders content because I'm working on film sessions for all of our draft picks and everything. I'm gonna come out with an overall grade and analysis of the entire draft and every pick that we made, so stay tuned for all of that. Without further ado, let's get it. All right, so the Commanders drafted center Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas with the 97th pick. Stromberg allowed 0 sacks last year as a senior and won the Jacobs blocking trophy as the top lineman in the SEC. He was an SEC center. I mean, he's the best of the best. 33 career starts at center, though, but 9 starts at right guard and 2 starts at left guard in his career. So he's a guy that provides some positional flex. The Commander center situation the last few seasons has been disastrous. Guys cannot stay healthy. So now between Stromberg and Nick Gates, that's going to add some depth or potentially a starter against Tyler Larson and Chase Roullier. We're going to get to Chase Roullier. But again, the fact that he has 33 starts at center, of course, means that he's primarily a center. But with 9 starts at right guard and 2 at left guard, you can also project him to potentially start at left guard, even though that's the one he's played the least. Right now, that's our biggest hole in the offensive line, with him being the first offensive lineman pick that we've made in this 2023 NFL draft. You can argue that he should probably at the very least compete for that starting left guard spot. Now, he's obviously our franchise center. Potentially, he should be moving forward 2024 and beyond, or maybe even at some point in this 2023 season. But as of 2024, I expect him to be our starting center, point blank, period. Especially when you take him in the 3rd round, you're drafting a starter, which is another reason why I feel like he's going to compete for that starting left guard spot immediately, but eventually become our franchise center later on down the road, starting 2024 at the latest at center. But left guard wise, he's competing directly with Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles for the starting left guard spot. That's not a lot of competition. I loved what I saw from Chris Paul in that final game against the Cowboys, but at the end of the day, he's a 7th round pick that only has 1 NFL game under his belt, and so we got to see how he looks competing. Sadiq Charles can't stay healthy, even though the Commanders are very high on him, and then now we have Ricky Stromberg again, if you take a guy in the third round, you're expecting him to contribute and start. And is he a continuation of our third round? I mean, you can say it's luck or you can say it's just genius. But the third round, we've been killing it, man. Going back to Brian Robinson. Before that, Benjamin St-Juste. And I think De'Ami Brown has some potential as well. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin. We killed third rounds. Even since Rivera's been here, we've been doing really well in the third round. That's been our sweet spot. So you kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt here. Again, you can argue that every pick we've made so far, especially Ricky Stromberg, you could have traded back and still got that guy. Some people feel like we could have gotten Ricky Stromberg maybe in the 4th or 5th round, which is what I originally thought as well. When we took him in the 3rd, I'm like, that's a really good player, but I'm just surprised we took him this quickly. But again, Rivera and Mayhew do not care about none of that big board stuff. If it's a guy that they love, they're going to take him. That's all that matters. So, interestingly enough, he played some guard in 2019, but he's played exclusively at center the past 3 seasons. But again, there's some experience at right guard and left guard. And again, most importantly, in the SEC, this is the best conference in football. So far, all of our players that we've taken so far, 2 SEC guys that have played very well in the SEC and performed very well. And then you also have Illinois, Quan Martin, and we're going to talk about him because you can argue he was the 2nd best defensive back in the arguably best defensive backfield in all of college football last year, and that's notable. But he played it at Illinois, which is the Big 12, which is heavy competition as well, only 2nd to the SEC. So we got ourselves some guys that can contribute immediately. Just like last year, we went for high floor, but I feel like even with the high floor that we got this draft, you can also say that there's more ceiling to it. Last draft, we went straight high floor, and then those guys look like it, of course. I mean, Fedarian Mathis got hurt. We're hoping we can break the 2nd round curse with Quan Martin. We're going to talk about that when I get to Quan Martin in another video. But either way, last draft was purely high floor, and I feel like this draft has a lot of high floor to it as well, but there just seems to be a little bit more ceiling. Ricky Stromberg is the most athletic center in this entire draft class. We're going to get to that. Quan Martin has elite athleticism as well. You can argue the most athletic corner in this draft class, at the very least the most athletic slot corner. And then Emmanuel Forbes, other than the weight, is a ridiculous freak athlete. Elite traits all over the place. Again, I compared him to basically being the Bryce Young of the cornerback group because he's elite and has everything you want him to have, including height and length. Literally the only thing you're missing is weight. And Bryce Young doesn't even have the height. Emmanuel Forbes has the height. He just doesn't have the weight. And he literally is elite at everything else. So we went high floor, but these guys also come with some ceiling. So I kind of like these picks a little bit more than I originally liked last year's picks when we made it through the first 3 rounds. And Rivera and company clearly have a type. Emmanuel Forbes had 35 games under his belt, started all 3 years at Mississippi State, and didn't miss like no time, like no injury history. Jartavius Quan Martin, 50 games at Illinois, 5-year starter, and Ricky Stromberg, 44 starts in college at Arkansas. I mean, they have a type. Are you going to be able to contribute immediately? Are you a playmaker? Are you an older, experienced guy that we know for a fact you come with a certain level of floor? That's their guys. If they have some additional ceiling to it, that's extra to them. You know, I'm a big ceiling guy. They don't prioritize ceiling. They care about floor way more than anything else. And I understand because Ron Rivera, you know, he could be coaching for his career right now. Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew, this could potentially be their last years as commanders, coaches, GMs, or whatever. And so they got to do what they can to improve this team and to get immediate starters right now to increase their chances of making the playoffs. Because no playoffs, they're probably out of here. So it makes sense, but I feel like that's just Rivera's mindset anyway, even without that. And then the Commanders are now, I don't think people notice, we are 3 for 3 on selecting guys that we brought in for top 30 private visits. Normally, teams bring in top 30 private visits to kind of do smoke screens, get teams off their trails like, hey, look, we're bringing this guy in for a visit. Look, we seem interested in this guy, just to end up not taking him, just so that they can keep their cards close to their chest and things like that. But this year, we're 3 for 3 on top 30 visits, guys. Like, we brought these guys in, talked to them, worked them out, and they just really wanted them. So it's really interesting. It's like the complete opposite of the last draft, where Jahan Dotson, we didn't meet with them at the combine. We didn't bring him in for a visit. Nothing. No confirmed attachments through any reports, and we took him out of nowhere, surprised everybody. But this year, no surprises. Emmanuel Forbes visited like April 8th, April 9th or something like that. And then Quan Martin visited like April 18th, and then I believe Ricky Stromberg visited April 19th. Like, these are confirmed top 30 visits that came all the way to Ashburn already. Emmanuel Forbes even said it in his press conference, his initial press conference after we drafted him. He was like, it's kind of surreal to actually be on the team and actually to be here permanently, because he coming here for a visit, and it was kind of temporary, of course, because it was just a quick little visit before the draft. But now that he's drafted here, he's like, I mean, I feel like this feels familiar. I've been here before, but it's surreal that I'm actually here and I belong to this team now. So these visits meant something this year. It's really interesting. But of course, when you're talking about Ricky Stromberg, we got to look at the rest of the division and what they've done. Do we believe Ricky Stromberg can block Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, and Jordan Davis twice a year? Can he do that? That's what matters the most. I mean, honestly, love his potential, love his tape, but at the end of the day, can you block those guys twice a year? If you can't, then you weren't worthy of a 3rd round pick. I feel like he has a good chance of doing it. Am I confident going in? I'm not exactly sure. Is there a chance that he could be a really good blocker against everybody else? Yes. But against that Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, and Jordan Davis combo they got for the Eagles right now, I'm not sure. But that's the ultimate test right there. Them and the defensive tackles of the Giants as well, because I feel like Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne are the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL. Individually, they may not be the best defensive tackles in the NFL, but as a duo, I feel like they got it on lock. But the Giants are not far behind them, and now that the Eagles have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Fletcher Cox, they're probably competing for number 1 as well. And so Ricky Stromberg, at the very least, iron sharpens iron. When we get to training camp and all of that type of stuff, he's going to be going against arguably the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL, whether he's at guard or center. So it should prepare him for the Eagles and the Giants, but at the same time, you are in the division with arguably the best collection of defensive tackles, including the ones on your own team. So we'll see how this goes, but this is very interesting. And then also, you got to remember, again, we talked about the SEC and we mentioned that, but I don't think people truly understand how amazing not allowing a single sack in the SEC is. I don't think people understand. I mean, he's gone against the level of competition like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter's and those guys. Like, and to not allow a sack in the best conference in the entire nation, you can argue, like, I mean, of course the SEC is the best conference, period. But then when you try to dive into receivers, you can maybe say, okay, maybe the Big 12 maybe got that or something like that. Maybe quarterbacks are better elsewhere and things like that. But when it comes to defensive line, the trenches, period, the SEC has that on lock, and it's by far, it's not even close. Now, the Big 12 and other conferences do produce really good edge rushers every now and then, but interior defensive line, the defensive tackle, specifically what Ricky Stromberg has had to go against, he's gone against the best of the best in his years of college. So he's as battle tested as it gets, just like Emmanuel Forbes having to be a corner in the SEC. But I also think it's really interesting because he's 6'3", 306 pounds, and there are some other interior offensive linemen that were taller than that. And shouts out to my boy Washington Command Center for pointing it out. The fact that he's 6'3", once he's bending down and blocking, maybe Sam Howell has a better chance of seeing over him than other taller interior offensive linemen that we could have ended up getting. Maybe that was factored into this pick. The elite athleticism, and then the fact that he's 6'3", so that's a better chance of Sam Howell being able to see around him and above him. It's really interesting. But DP Brugler brought up a good point. He said Ricky Stromberg knows when to be the class clown and when to be the leader of the pack, and I love that. So he's going to be a really enjoyable guy. He's going to be a great locker room guy. He's going to be a leader when it's necessary, but when it's not, he knows how to have fun, and I feel like he's going to fit in great with the group because Emmanuel Forbes seems like a really serious, down to business type of guy, and Quan Martin, for what I've seen, kind of seems the same. Stromberg is like the first real everybody's happy to see him locker room guy, let's go out and hang out type of guy that we may. I mean, Quan Martin and Emmanuel Forbes may have that as well. I'm not saying that they don't, but we know for a fact Stromberg is kind of the class clown in a way. But again, when it matters most, he can step up and be serious when he needs to. And you know, Rivera Martin May, he would not have taken him if he couldn't. But I love the fact that he's bringing some personality and some fun. But now we got to talk about what's exactly going on, because Nick Gates, we brought him in as a free agent and he's highly regarded. And so there was a debate on whether he would be the starting center. Maybe he could be a starting left guard, but then Ron Rivera said this between Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles after we signed Nick Gates. So Nick Gates is assumed to be one of the strongest contributors to the center group, maybe even the starter. Which takes me to the point, like, if he's starting, that means Chase Roullier is gone. I mean, Tyler Larson could be a backup that's cool for very cheap. Maybe like a third stringer, especially now that Ricky Stromberg is being brought in. I'm assuming Nick Gates is above Tyler Larson on the depth chart. But Chase Roullier right now, man, top 5 center when healthy. But if you cut him, you take on $8.1 million worth of dead cap if you do it before June 1st, and you would only save $4.32 million, which is not a lot. Then that basically becomes reversed if you wait till after June. So if we were to cut him after June, it would be $4 million worth of dead cap that we would have to eat, but we would save $8.37 million. So if we cut Chase Roullier, I'm assuming it would be after that, because $8 million worth of dead cap, and then you only save $4 million. I don't think that's enough to cut him. At the very least, Chase Roullier, you go into the season like, hey, man, if you can't stay healthy this last year, you're done. You're gone after this year. We're just going to let you walk. And then we have Ricky Stromberg ready to start behind you as soon as 24 kicks off, or maybe even some point in the 2023 season if Chase Roullier ends up getting hurt, because we've seen through the years that he can't even play half a season. And I feel like he needs to take a contract restructure, because if you can only play half a season, they give us half of that money back. We're not paying you per half a season basis. It's annual, not semi-annual. These contracts, how they go. Otherwise, he's making even way more money than he should. So Chase Roullier, this is your last chance. Ricky Stromberg is on your heels, and Nick Gates is ready to start at center if we need him to right now. If Chase Roullier gets hurt, and if for some reason Ricky Stromberg is not ready, but I do feel like he comes with a high enough floor to where if Chase Roullier to get hurt, Nick Gates will be the backup to Stromberg. But maybe that's just me being really high on him. Speaking of being high on Stromberg, DP Brugler had him as his third rated safety in this entire class, which will be a steal in the third round at 97th overall, technically an early 4th round pick, because we had to go through the entire third round to get that compensatory pick. We were technically like the first 4th round pick if you really want to look at it like that. But Stromberg could stand to play with better body control and posture through engagement, but he gains early positioning, works hard to stay attached, and loses slowly. He is a versatile NFL backup with eventual starter potential. So he basically feels like, yeah, Chase Roullier is your starting center. Tyler Larson is probably third string with Nick Gates, who we just brought in as your second string. And Stromberg, eventually, once he learns better leverage, learns how to hold on the blocks better, he could be a franchise center eventually, but just don't expect him to be able to step up and do that in 2023. And again, I feel like he could even potentially contribute as a left guard starter, competing against Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles rather immediately, maybe after training camp going into this regular season week 1. You never know. But Ricky Stromberg's grades in 2022, 77.1 pass block grade, 83.7 run block grade with an 84.1 in zone and a 61.1 in gap. So that tells you that as much as the Commanders love to run zone, he's a great fit for us. His best grade is zone blocking, and then his run blocking is better than his pass blocking grade. We'll see how that goes. He was 218 on Pro Football Focus's big board in the 8th ranked center. I would disagree with that. I'm somewhere in the middle, kinda, but I'm definitely closer to DP Brugler, who has him as the 3rd ranked center. And then Baldy has him ranked as his 2nd ranked center. He did his top 5 centers. He has Joe Tippmann, then Ricky Stromberg, John Michael Schmitz, Luke Weipler, and then Alex Forsythe. So Baldy feels like we got a huge steal, and we should have gotten Ricky Stromberg potentially like in the 2nd round, maybe even late 1st, how good he is. And then Bleacher Report consensus gave us a B+ grade. So, hey man, some people even higher on this pick than even I am. I think it's a good pick. I think he's a really good player. I just feel like we could have gotten him later. That's my only thing. But at the end of the day, if you have Rivera Martin Mayhew's logic, there is no later. You take him right now and don't chance it. But Stromberg said that he loved talking ball with future offensive lines coach Travell Wharton. Sounds like they really clicked, and that's very important. John Com tweeted that. So again, I've been saying it over and over again. We technically don't have an offensive lines coach right now, but Travell Wharton, who right now is our assistant offensive lines coach with nobody above him just yet, it sounds like John Com is basically saying, calling him a future offensive lines coach, that he will be elevated, and he had something to deal with us taking Ricky Stromberg, and they already have that connection. So that's our future offensive lines coach right there. Breaking news. And then at this point, moving forward, I'm hoping, I'll probably do a video maybe before 11:30 a.m. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. Get DeJuan Jones tomorrow at tackle. I mean, I know we will have to figure out what to do with Andrew Wiley, but he is the best player available probably in this entire draft now, especially now that Darnell Washington is gone. DeJuan Jones is literally the best player available. People were thinking that he was probably a late 1st round pick early second round pick. The talent is clearly there, but it's being reported that at the Senior Bowl, he had a great first day, but then after that, DeJuan Jones decided to become lackadaisical in his reps and did poorly in some interviews. And then I heard something about him storming off and not participating in the rest of the Senior Bowl for some reason. So that's why he's fallen. And I could definitely see Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew basically immediately taking him off their boards because of that, no matter how talented he is. But if we're talking about best player available left in this draft, you could debate this between Kelee Ringo and DeJuan Jones easily. And me personally, with the way our team is constructed, I would prefer DeJuan Jones even as a Georgia Bulldog fan. The talent is there, but boy, you got some off the field concerns right now, and they're not like high school, they're not even college. It's real recent in the draft process, so we'll see. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. How do you feel about the Ricky Stromberg pick? Was I able to convince you that he's better than you thought, or am I lower on him than even a lot of y'all are? So I've seen some people that are really high on him and feel like he may be still the draft. Again, like Brian Baldinger. We'll see. But let me know how you feel about this pick, and also let me know who you want for us to take immediately tomorrow in the 4th round. Well, technically today, 11:30 a.m. I'll start streaming. Draft starts at 12. Let me know who you want us to get day 3, especially in the 4th round. And yeah, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name is scrolling on the screen right now. Appreciate all y'all that are pulling up to all of the live streams, leaving likes, donating. Really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all with a Quan Martin video shortly after this. I'm out.